Okay, welcome to week 9. We're getting towards exciting parts of data science, in my opinion, because there is we're getting close to the turf of these new LLMs that we're using, right? We're This session we're going to learn the very basic ideas around natural language processing and see how that's thought about when in terms of data science. Okay? So going back to Twitch, if you remember, we had this problem of Twitch moderation. So Twitch chat moves fast, right? Thousands of messages per minute. Then moderators can't read everything in real time, right? So we want a model that flags abusive messages automatically. You can think of a model that does this, right? So let's think of an example. If the question is this message abusive? Someone says trash, uninstall, noob. Okay, seems abusive. Play GG, not abusive. You're actually trash at this game, abusive. That boss fight will kill me. Okay? Yeah, average league. These are none of these are real abusive in the way actual gaming abuse can be, but again, we can't actually do the real abusive stuff because this is a class, not. But I bet you all have the experience. Okay, so we want to figure out how to deal with it, right? We will, as I've mentioned, we have these people that come label these, but then now assuming that we have right? Labels. But why is this a hard problem? The same word shows up in both contexts. For example, kill in a game complaint versus a threat is a problem, right? Sarcasm and tone don't show up in text alone. Slang and spelling evolve constantly. Millions of messages. Moderation has to be automatic and fast, or at least it has to flag a subset of messages for you to check. Okay? So we can reframe our problem as a classification problem, right? Input is a chat message, which is a text. Output is a label, for example, abusive or clean. This is a classification problem, but it's different, right? Because so far we've only looked at tables. Things were in nice columns and rows, but text is not, right? Again, models compute with numbers, not sentences. Sentences are unstructured data. So we need to turn text into numbers. So if you go back to our feature engineering part, we've seen something about this, okay? So how do we get from text to numbers? A model can read trash, uninstall, noob the way we do, okay? Every model, naive Bayes, that we're going to work with today needs a numeric representation of text. Getting there usually takes 2 steps, right? This is the most basic ways of getting vectors or getting numbers from words. First is tokenize. And any of you AI nerds might have heard that, hey, token count and stuff, that's basically it. You turn something into a token first, the tokens are those words, and then you count how many tokens are present here. Okay? So let's look at tokenization. Essentially, you want to break raw text into smaller units. These are usually words. Even this idea is complex because there are choices to make along the way, right? Trash has an uppercase, right? We might want to get this to lowercase and uninstall, but we might use information. You've seen YouTube titles, for example, where uppercase means yelling or something, right? So that might be a signal towards your classification, but you can lowercase it to unify it to focus on just the word, okay? You can remove punctuation because, hey, that's a lot, right? You can then split on spaces, and then you will have a list, trash and uninstall, okay? So what other choices? What choices we have? A recap, lowercasing everything. Do we do trash versus trash? Do we strip the punctuation? Do we remove common words like the, is, and U. So we'll come back to this essentially, but these are called stop words, and these are not really informative, right? But maybe, hey, U is a signal if someone was said, hey, I'm gonna kill you, right? Okay, so let's look at now a toy data set to see how we might build a classifier. So trash, uninstall, new game. I had to use simple examples because we're gonna hand count stuff. Idiot trash chat, play GG chat, nice play game. Okay, so these two are abusive, these two are clean. Small on purpose, small enough to calculate by hand. Okay, so we want to do what? Every unique token across 4 messages. We want to build a vocabulary. This is all of our words. Chat, game, GG, idiot, new, nice, play, played, trash, uninstall. 11 words. This is our vocabulary. Okay? So the first thing that we do, we create this ordered list. Okay? And we just put the number. Whether how many times that word is present into this document. It has 1 chat, it has 1 idiot, it has 1 trash, it has 1, this one has 1 install, right? Okay, so we just count the numbers and put them in these rows. This is called count vectorization. Again, the columns are all the words in all the documents, and then the counts are the ones that are present within the specific document that we're looking at. Remember, this, your vector is every word, is your dictionary of words across your whole corpus of documents. This method is called bag of words. Word order is thrown away, only counts remain. So what we have now, every message is now a vector of numbers. We can compare, count, and calculate with these vectors. For example, you can notice that trash appears only in abusive rows, only in clean rows. That's a signal. Chat and game show up in both abusive and clean rows. We'll see what that does in the math. Okay? So now let's go back to our base. You've all answered this in your exam. Okay? Quick recall. We met base theorem earlier this term. One more pass. This time aimed straight at classification. Okay? So probability of A given B equals probability of B given A times probability of A divided by probability of B. We've seen that. So we have 4 pieces. Let's name each one. This is our posterior probability, probability of A given B. It's our updated belief about A after seeing the data, seeing the evidence. Probability of B given A is our likelihood. How likely is B if A is true? We've seen the example. A is our prior belief about A before seeing any evidence. And B is the evidence. How likely B is overall. Okay? So swapping this to our problem, we want to look at probability of class given the message that we've seen. So how likely is abusive given this message that we have, right? That equals probability of message given this class. How likely to see is our message if given it is abusive, times probability of the class, probability of abusive, for example, divided by probability of the message. That is our posterior. Probability the message is abusive given the words it contains. Likelihood, how likely these exact words are if the message really is abusive. Prior, how common abusive messages are overall. And evidence, how common this exact message is regardless of the class. Okay? And where does the prior come from? For example, you can use, we have 2 abusive, 2 clean. So our prior, the P of abusive is 0.5 and P of clean is 0.5 in this data set. Okay? It's just counting. Okay? So we can drop the denominator here. Why? Because the probability of a message is the same number no matter which class we're testing. To decide between abusive and clean, we just need to know which number is bigger. We don't need to know the probability. We just need to compare. That's why the probabilities cancel out. So our problem is reduced to this. We can say probability of class given message is proportional to probability of message given class time probability of class. Okay? But the real challenge here is to calculate the probability of message given class. A message is one specific combination of words. Okay? To compute this directly, we'd need to have seen that exact combination many times during training. We almost never have enough data for that. Most word combinations are rare or brand new. So we take a naive assumption. Naive Bayes, for example, assumes each word's probability is independent of the others given this class. That turns one hard combination into a product of easy pieces. So here, for example, we say probability of message given the class is the product of probability of all the words given that class. Now we're going to see an example. Let's calculate this by hand. So let's work the example. So our test message is trash game, which most games are trash. I don't know. I would not call this abusive, but let's go with it because most games are trash these days. Okay? So we want to compare probability of abusive given this message versus probability of clean given this message. Okay? Whichever is bigger wins. So let's look at priors. Our priors are 0.5. 2 messages in each class out of 4 total, right? This is the word counts per class, right? We've seen this before. We have the total. We have the count here, okay? We have a 11-word vocabulary size. So watch, trash, and game. That's our test message. The likelihood formula. So what was this? Probability of word given class is counting the word in this class divided by total words in class, okay? So it's just a proportion. How often this word shows up within this class. So probability of trash given abusive is 2, the number of ones that this showed up divided by 7. 2 of the 7 words in abusive messages are trash. That's what we're doing. Probability of game given abusive. Only 1 of the 7 game shows up, but it's not as a strong abusive signal on its own. There's no trash word in clean in our data set, right? So we need to take note of that because there's the probability of 0, right? No, not one square is colored. Trash never appears in a clean message. Probability of game given clean, 1 divided by 8. By the same odds as abusive, this word isn't telling us much, okay? So what is our problem? We have 1 missing word, and that should not be an absolute veto, okay? So probability of trash given clean equals 0. Because this gets multiplied by all the other probabilities, the entire message probability collapses to 0, no matter what else is in it. So real vocabularies have thousands of words. Most won't appear in every class. So we do what? We add 1 to every word count. We say, okay, what is the count of our word in this class? And we add 1 to it, okay? So we pretend every word in vocabulary appeared 1 extra time in every class, which guarantees no probability is ever exactly 0. And then we just add the vocabulary size to the denominator. Okay, so this way, abusive, 7 real words, 11 ghost words, 1 per vocab word. We have 18 total. Same idea applies to clean, and then we do this. Want to calculate probability of trash given class? We say 2 plus 1 divided by 7 by 11. That is our probability, and then we do this. Okay, we calculate the numbers, and so trash is no longer a hard 0, just a small number. Then we need to do multiplying the word probabilities, okay? So probability of message given class is the product of the probabilities of the words within that message. That's the assumption that they are independent. Because they're independent, we can multiply them. So for trash game, each class has exactly 2 words. So probability of message given class equals probability of trash given class multiplied by probability of game given class, okay? Then We just substitute the numbers, boom, and we have this number for probability of message given that is abusive, and we have probability of message given it's clean, two numbers. After our prior, this is our likelihood, and these are those numbers. Abusive is larger. We say we think this message, classify this as abusive. Okay? And then, as you can see, it was the word trash that drove this because the game did not really contribute because it was equal in both. Big gap between classes, strong signal does the real work. Game nearly the same height in both, barely moves the decision. Okay, so now let's go back to some other ideas about vectorization. Now that you saw an example of how we vectorize a text, okay? The bag of words uses just each words and split by spaces. So these are called unigrams, single words. We throw away the order completely. So for example, not toxic, very kind, and very toxic, not kind, that produce identical count vectors. But we can create words that capture a little bit of order. We can get to the notion of n-grams. Instead of tokenizing into single words, tokenize into sequence of n consecutive words. So n equals 1 is unigram, n equals 2 is bigram, trigram, etc. So then our tokens would be, so if our tokens were not toxic, very kind, we create a sliding window. So we create not toxic, very, and very kind. Okay? So not toxic, very kind. You see how that's helpful? Because now the streamer is not toxic, very kind. It has very kind here. It has not kind here. Some semantic information is preserved, okay? Because order is important. This will probably do a better job in this context and in distinguishing these two classes, these two texts together, okay? Otherwise, with just one word, splitting by words, we would have problems. The sequences are important, okay? So now the vectors differ. Naive Bayes has now something to actually distinguish these two messages by, okay? But there's a cost. We're increasing our vocabulary, right? We're just sliding through, right? So we're going to have more context per token, more possible combinations. Vocabulary grows fast. Count vectors get sparser, more zeros. Trade-offs. It's better at catching order, harder to get enough examples of every combination. There's also this idea of character n-grams. For example, idiot and idiot with a 0 could be different. You can create these character 3 if you're really into this. You can use them as completely different unrelated tokens. Character trigrams still share the IDI. Some signals survive the obfuscation. So we want to choose a tokenization strategy, simple, fast, but blind to word order, capture some order and phrasing, make the vectors more sparse because we have way more unique things because of order. Order is more rare. Character n-grams is robust to misspellings and obfuscation, usually specified for abuse spam detection. All of these still plug into the same naive Bayes math, only how we build the count vector changes. Okay? I've already shown you this TF-IDF, term frequency, inverse document frequency. Count vectors treat every word the same way. Just how many times did it appear? A word that shows up almost every message isn't very distinctive, even if its count is high. We want a score that rewards words that are frequent here, but rare elsewhere, okay? So the term frequency of a word and doc is essentially the count of word in that doc divided by total words in doc, okay? This is the same calculation we already did for naive Bayes likelihood, just applied per document here instead of per class. So that's document frequency. In how many documents does this word appear at all? Not how many times, just in how many documents. So chat appears in docs 2 and 3. The DF, the document frequency is 2. Idiot, it's 1, and is 2. Only 4 documents in total in our toy corpus, so DF can only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? The inverse document frequency is the log of the n divided by the document frequency of the word. That's the total number of documents, and rare. So the n is the total, and DF is, we just looked at it, right? So if the IDF is high, means this is rare. Low IDF means a word in every doc gets IDF equals 0. Okay? So you can then compare words based on the rarity in the document. Because they're shared by both classes, red abusive only, blue clean only. Yeah, and it's important, the IDF doesn't know about classes. We can use it later to distinguish classes. It counts how many documents a word appears in. It has no idea which class those documents belong to. A word can be a perfect class signal and still get an unremarkable IDF score. IDF measures rareness, not classification usefulness. Those are related, but not the same thing. So we use TF-IDF, term frequency, inverse document frequency. So we multiply the term frequency multiplied by the IDF. So high score, frequent in this message, and rare across the corpus. That's what makes a word distinctive. So the work example here is, well, in doc 3, play GG chat, 4 words, term frequency is 1 divided by 4.25. IDF is log 10 of 4 divided by 2 is this, so we multiply them. We calculate the same thing for idiot, and now we get a TF-IDF for well and idiot, right? So both words appear once in their message, same TF story, but idiot is rarer across the corpus, so it ends up with the higher TF-IDF score. Count vector asks how many times does each word appear in this message. TF-IDF asks how much does each word actually tell us about this message. Essentially, the, is, are, those stop words become less meaningful because they appear in almost every message. You can build naive Bayes on either of them. It tends to work well with TF-IDF. It's not as intuitive to show because you're not dealing with counts, so calculating the probabilities is different. But the question is, count vector tells you what's there, TF-IDF tells you what's distinctive. Okay? Now, let's just have a glimpse of what's naive Bayes in reality. We really have longer messages. Bro, literally uninstalled the game already, you absolute waste of a human being trash player. That was such a clean play, OMG, well done, let's go, nice combo at the end there. A lot of words. Everyone in this lobby is actual garbage, Lamau, noob team carried by nobody. Okay? So these are examples. What this mean? These real messages, way more than 11 words, right? We have a full day, we have about 50,000 words or something, okay? It's the vocabulary is large, the vector explodes. So each message is just one row, but now it's a row with 50,000 columns and more, right? So a vector, imagine this square is every word. The vector is just these lines, right? Each word is like very sparse. That's what's a sparsity. 300 columns shown, a real vector might be 50,000 column wide, almost entirely 0. What this means in practice, vector dispars are stored as sparse matrices. Only the non-zero positions are kept, not 50,000 zeros per message. Multiplying hundreds of small probabilities together in the naive Bayes example, it underflows to 0. It becomes really small, so small that computers then can't deal with it. So real implementations instead sum the log of the probabilities instead. Because they're independent, instead of multiplying, you can add the log of the probabilities. The math is exactly what we did by hand, just done at scale in log space with sparse storage. Okay? Now, remember this, it's just for you to remember because your computer is calculating things for you. But now let's look at another algorithm. We're switching gears a little bit. So take a deep breath. You've already might have tried some of these, but I'm just going to show you the idea because using the same problem, we can design another algorithm to give us the same answer, right? We have a different kind of model. Probabilistic, naive-Bayes, multiplies word probabilities together. Decision trees, it asks a series of yes, no questions about a message. No independent assumptions at all. It generally, it's a different paradigm, right? So if we have 6 messages, 3 abusive, 3 clean, we have, for example, we added 2 new messages, 1 abusive, 1 contains, and a clean one that doesn't, right? What it does is that, okay, it says, does the word contain well? And then it breaks the decision apart, okay? You can say, yes, documents 3, 4, and 5 contain the word well, and documents 1, 2, and 6 do not. It's not a perfect split this time. Both sides still contain a mix of classes. The tree needs to go one level deeper. So we can ask for each of these branches a new question, okay? You can say, does it contain the word trash? If yes, it's abusive, document 5. If no, it's clean, documents 3 and 4. And then we can ask the same question. Does the document contain the word nice? You can ask yes, no, right? Same idea in 2 branches. And now this is your decision. Decision trees are simple. How it learns, this basically, it builds a tree like this of decisions, and then you can just go down and see which one is your classification based on where you end up. Okay? In this case, we can have 2 levels of questions, 4 pure leaves. Every leaf now contains only 1 class. It's worth noticing one of those leaves contains trash and leads to abusive, has only exactly 1 message in it. That's a warning sign, not a triumph. The tree has carved out a rule custom fit to a single example. It says it has 2 questions and it leads to 1 example. That's called overfitting. This won't generalize at all. Okay, remember, that's why decision trees are hard to deal with. This overfitting risk is miniature here. What we need to do to fix this is come up with a clever idea, right? What we do is use ensemble methods. One of them is random forest. Essentially, what it does, it takes the average decision across a bunch of different trees instead of just trusting one of them. How does the tree pick the question? At each step, before we get to the random forest, the tree tries many possible questions, right? It checks whether different words and pick whichever one separates the classes the best. There are 2 common ways to measure to ask how good is this split. Gini impurity, roughly ask how often you'd mislabel a message if you guessed randomly within this group. Information gain asked roughly how much more certain we are about the class after asking this question compared to before. Just remember these. You can look it up on, I don't know, YouTube, or it's interesting to know about these. These are, the more you get into machine learning, these different metrics of sort of optimization and getting errors are interesting and important. The goal is to get to fewer mixed groups, right? And then what if no word in real data rarely splits perfectly in one question, like our toy example. So the tree keeps asking further questions on each branch, going deeper, splitting like this still mixed group again. Okay, and we're going back to the overfitting risk. A tree can keep splitting until every single training message has its own leaf. Basically, you can memorize the data, which would generalize terribly to new messages. The deeper the tree, the more it's learning quirks of this specific data, not the general pattern. So what we do, we have a bunch of different nice algorithms. These are really cool, really smart. It's like we essentially build a bunch of different trees. It's so easy to build decision trees. You build 500 of them. What you do, just randomly pick columns or words and just use those words only. Or just use a random subset of messages, okay? And then classify a new message. Every 3 votes, the majority wins. This is called an ensemble method. So for example, these are 4 different trees we've built. 3 of them said it's abusive. These are using different words. Boom, you decide abusive. It turns out that this is so much better than just a simple decision tree. What's also interesting is that really with decision trees, you can know which columns gave you the best sort of decision. It's an explainable algorithm. Okay, now let's wrap up today. We built this week, we learned how to tokenize, we did count vectors, naive Bayes, bigrams, n-gram, TF-IDF, decision trees, and forests. These are concepts that you can get more deep into. So let's go back to where we started. I have several ways to answer, is this abusive? Message 4 is exactly the kind of case that still trips these models up. Kill in a game, complaint, not a threat. So no model here truly understands the message. Each is finding a statistical pattern in the word usage. And to close, these models learn whatever patterns exist in their training data, including its blind spots. You can abuse classifier building. For example, you can flag African American English and reclaimed language as abusive at disproportionately higher rates simply because the word pattern are involved. A highly accurate classifier can still be systematically wrong for specific groups of people. So a decision of this system, the question isn't just, does this model work? It's who does it work for and who does it fail? Okay? We learn data science, but we don't have to trust them. We need to know what we're doing. Okay, we're at 40 minutes. I timed pretty accurately. Any other question? Yes, the link, I will put it on the table in the website. Any other questions? All right. If not, thanks for joining. Let us know if you have questions, and I'll see you all next Monday.